I believe in ghosts, spirits, the supernatural, whatever you want to call it. It's hard knowing the truth when no one else does. Then you see all these paranormal shows that leave you with more questions than answers, fueling the skeptics. Luckily, for everyone about to see this isn't one of them. Everyone has a ghost story. Every place has a haunted history. What you're about to witness is what happens when one man's journey collides with history, leaving them forever linked, their destinies entwined. This is my story. I was born and raised here in Goliad, here in La Bahia, right next to this mission. Growing up next to this place was an experience, to say the least. I must have walked around this place 1,000 times, never really truly knowing what was on the other side of those walls. Over the years, this place has had hundreds of visitors, everybody from tourists to people just going to Sunday Mass. As a kid, I never viewed this place as a part of history. I saw it as any kid would, just a part of the neighborhood. As I got older, I realized there was more to this place than just stones and mortar. It was more than just a tourist attraction, and it was more than a place of worship. It was more than a part of my neighborhood, a part of my home. It would one day become a part of my history, a lot more than just a childhood hangout. It would define who I am. This place is a beautiful place during the day, but at night, it's a very different place. People raised in this neighborhood know all too well that the reputation of the Presidio was well earned. Everyone has a story about something they witnessed here, something they may have heard or seen. I think most people here have questioned their sanity at some point, me included. We were waiting for someone to come along and tell us we weren't crazy, that the long history of death inside these walls did indeed leave something behind. Teams of paranormal investigators have stayed here throughout the years. We hoped every time they would validate our claims. While each team had some levels of success, no one was able to capture any definitive footage. No apparitions, only EVPs. Seeing is believing to most people. I decided to take it upon myself to capture the dark past of the Presidio. People ask me why I do this, and they tell me I'm either really brave or I'm crazy. I know why I do it. I've never shared this with anybody. I mean, not even my family. But my mother died 10 years ago, and there was 2 occasions where I know I saw her, and I had to find proof that these things were real, that she was real. I never told any of my family about that. They don't know why I do this. It's taken me several years of trial and error to finally create the perfect paranormal investigation. A hunt that would not only allow me to locate entities, but to interact with them as well. I use methods no one's ever attempted before, some of which I will reveal, others I'm going to keep to myself. I would not have others place themselves in the dangers I volunteer for. You will rarely see me on camera, and I won't be equipped with audio or video most of the time. This is the way it needs to be. I also do my investigations completely alone. No crew, no cameraman, no contact with the outside world. Again, this is the way that it must be. There are several things I do on an investigation that are vital to success. Everything must be right, down to the smallest detail. Even certain types of cameras, certain brands, are needed to capture apparitions. The right equipment is just one of several key details that cannot be overlooked. Even my appearance has a purpose. Spirits were people once, and people are curious by nature. I count on that human element still being there. I'm sure they stare just as much as the living, breathing people I encounter in my everyday life. In fact, I'm counting on it. One thing I've learned is that spirits don't want to be filmed. They do their best to remain hidden. This is something that I've never fully understood, yet it remained an obstacle for me to overcome if I was going to get answers to my questions. This is the main reason I roam unequipped with video and audio. It gives me a greater probability of capturing something on the cameras I set up. Whatever happens to me, I'll have my cameras as witnesses. Which brings me to my next point, being alone. Think about the greatest paranormal experience you've ever had. Most people had theirs while being alone. I noticed over the years that being alone gives you a much greater chance at making some form of contact. While it can be unnerving at times, you must never get scared. To do so usually will end the activity. Ignoring them will make them try harder to get to you if that is their intention. Unfortunately, this method brings with it a certain amount of danger. I don't advise anyone to try unless you're prepared to deal with the consequences. During this investigation, danger was always on my mind. This Presidio is old. You can see its age by the weathered stones in the walls. I didn't know what kind of residuals I could expect from a building that has been standing for a couple hundred years. Many people walked through its doors during its history. There's no way of knowing how many of them felt a connection to this place, or if any of them lingered after death. It's believed in some circles that if someone dies a violent death, that their soul will remain in the place of their demise. How many souls must be here in this place? A place that was once armed with instruments of death on every corner. How many people had to seek out the protection of these walls? How many soldiers called this place home? How many of them still do so? These are all things that I've wondered about over the years. I would be reminded of these questions before my time at the Presidio reached its conclusion. If I could successfully pull off this investigation, I would be doing more than finding the peace I've chased after for so long. In the act, I would be answering one of mankind's oldest questions. Are ghosts real? The time has come to find out. The first thing I do on an investigation is walk around the perimeter with animals. Dogs are great for locating paranormal activity. Most of the time, they will lead you straight to it. On this night, they led me to the Angel of Goliad, Francisca Alvarez, a statue located in a field next to the Presidio. I wasn't sure why they led me here, but I was about to find out. Something was waiting for us at the statue. I never felt its presence. I wasn't able to see it, but we all clearly heard it run past us when we got too close. It headed straight for the Presidio. It was so loud and clear that I knew three things immediately. 1, the direction it ran. 2, that it was on 2 feet. And 3, the steps were very close together, indicating a small person. There are some steps over here. Dogs are out too. Check it out. You know all those times you thought you just saw something out the corner of your eye? Chances are you just did. You just haven't been trained to see it. Whatever was in the Presidio was letting me know it was just as interested in me as I was of it. It was time to leave cameras behind and see who was here with me. It wasn't long after I left the courtyard that things began to happen. It always starts out small at first, but as the night goes on, things tend to get more aggressive as to get my attention. The key is to not be afraid. Spirits were people at one time. We have to understand that sometimes we are guests in their homes. I found that treating them like living people yields far greater results than harassing them ever would. With that in mind, it shouldn't have come as a surprise to me that it was them who made first attempt at contact. The key is to not be afraid. A child is here. The EVP of her saying mama would be the first of many. When I heard these EVPs, it bothered me. You can hear the loneliness in her voice as she searches for her mother. While I was figuring out how to interact with her, other things kept happening around the Presidio. I had already suspected a little girl was here. I couldn't be sure, but growing up next to the Presidio gave me an edge most paranormal investigators don't have. I'm already familiar with my surroundings. I had picked her up on audio outside the mission before. I felt so bad for this girl I decided to bring her a ball and a teddy bear with the hope that she would find some comfort with the toys. I was prepared to lure her out by offering her a friend. I could feel her presence in the courtyard with me. She made me feel sick to my stomach and drained of all energy. I could also sense that she wasn't afraid of me and welcomed my gifts. Even after I left the courtyard, she continued to play. She wasn't the only one with me. Throughout the investigation, I kept being followed by another entity, this one being a man. I believe he was responsible for all the noises throughout my investigation. He didn't like me and he didn't hide his feelings towards me. Only 2 of his EVPs didn't include foul language. His breathing and the EVP Go is the only language to use that I will show you. While this entity was aware of me, another entity was about to cross my path and was completely unaware that I was there. In this one spot on the mission, I kept getting this orb. It didn't matter where I stood when I took the pictures. This orb stayed in the same general area all night long, never moving far. It acted as if this area of the wall was its only concern, like a soldier manning its post. Crossing its path didn't deter it from making its rounds. Inside the mission, I was able to walk right up to it and feel its energy. The audio from this area would completely shock me. It didn't matter how many times I heard it. I would always hear Brayson, yet could not find the name Brayson anywhere in history. After weeks of searching, I found an answer in the place I should have been looking all along, my neighborhood. Carved into a monument built in honor of the dead are dozens of names of the deceased. Many had lost their lives in or around the mission. Among them was John M. Bryson. Back in the chapel courtyard, my new little friend was about to make a special appearance. It started with EVPs. And then moved on to interactions. I don't know if it was my long hair or calm demeanor that reminded her of her mother. Whatever it was enough to make her comfortable enough to show herself. When this happened, I was here, just on the other side of this wall. I felt so sick I was considering pulling the plug on the investigation. I was dizzy and weak from her trying to manifest. I can only assume that this ball of heavenly light was the girl I kept getting on audio. I felt horrible at this point, but not threatened. This is why I believe it was the girl appearing in front of the toys. To give you a better understanding of what you're seeing, this is a shot of the doorway to the chapel courtyard from inside the Presidio. This is where the camera is located that captured this EVP. Exactly 2 minutes later, this command would be carried out. It moves as if it has a mind of its own. This mist, or this fog, or whatever it may be, came out of nowhere. I was in the chapel courtyard while this was happening. I didn't witness this man rising from the mist, but I felt him when he passed through the doorway. I was unarmed of video and audio equipment, but left this one camera hidden. Spirits don't want to be filmed. But they were people once, and people make mistakes. John M. Bryson, born August 19, 1808 in Washington County, Pennsylvania. He was executed on March 27, 1836 at just 27 years old, not far from the mission. He served in Captain Wynn's company, 1st Regiment, Texas Volunteers, under Captain James C. Wynn. Their company was a part of the Georgia Battalion being commanded by Major Warren Jordan Mitchell. All these men served under Colonel James Walker Fannin. These men also happen to share a grave. The monument where I found Bryson's name also doubles as a tombstone for him and Colonel Fannin. Could this image be John Bryson, 177 years after his execution, following commands even in death? And what about the EVP given the order? Is it possible that was the voice of Captain Wynn, who was also executed here? Or is it by some chance the voice of Colonel Fannin himself, still leading the charge in search of vengeance for the horrible execution he was given? No one will ever truly know. What we do know is that the images captured here in the Presidio will go on to raise more questions than answers. We've never had a solid piece of evidence that life continues after we leave our physical bodies. Until now. Finally, proof, peace. The holy grail of all paranormal footage. Apparitions appearing and disappearing in front of the camera. and I captured it. I'm not a seasoned pro, nor do I consider myself an expert. I was just a man, desperate for an answer, having spent too many years consumed by a question. And now I know the truth, and so do you. This footage changed my life. It was meant for me and me alone. It was never intended to be seen by you or anyone else. I've done a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of, and I have my fair share of sins to carry. But to continue hiding these beautiful images from the world would be a crime. It changed my life. It may change yours too. And so the search has come to an end. My time in the Presidio finished. I'm sure there are still going to be skeptics, and that's just fine with me. They have every right to be. No one has ever shown them anything real. There is no yardstick to measure such things. By creating my own methods to find the truth, I inadvertently answered my entire town's questions about the Presidio. What if I could do this for other communities? What if I could change people's lives the way my investigation of the Presidio changed my life? It appears my journey will continue. I'm not going to give you some cheesy line like "this isn't the end, it's only the beginning." So instead, I'm just going to leave you with this. You'll be seeing me again. And I'll be going places.
Preview.